Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hi everyone. My name is Dr. Muhammad Azrin, and right now we will discuss about chapter 3, which is coordinate system and geometry. By the end of this video, you should be able to define coordinate system and also discuss about linear equation and also quadratic equation in two-dimensional coordinate system. Before we go further, I would like to introduce to you three types of coordinate system, which is the first one-dimensional coordinate system, two-dimensional coordinate system, and three-dimensional coordinate system. If you can see on your screen, one-dimensional coordinate system is defined as a point on a line or number line. Meanwhile, two-dimensional coordinate system is defined as a flat plane which has length and width x and y axis. And last but not least, we also have a three-dimensional coordinate system that involve length, width, and depth, or someone can call it as height, which can be represented by x, y, and z axis. As mentioned earlier, one-dimensional coordinate system is simply as a point on a line or a number line. Meanwhile, if you can see on your screen, when we have two-dimensional coordinate system, by right, two-dimensional coordinate system always cooperates with x and y axis. If you can see clearly, two-dimensional coordinate system normally can be divided into four different regions where we call them as quadrants. We have first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, and fourth quadrant. Other than that, in three-dimensional coordinate system, you have additional axis where we call it as z-axis. If you can see on the screen, by right, three-dimensional coordinate system is made up from three different planes such as xy plane, xz plane, and yz plane. Basically, when you try to plot a point in one-dimensional coordinate system, you need to have this kind of number line. And this number line somehow can be seen on your screen. For example, if I'm asking you to plot point 1 in one-dimensional coordinate system, so basically you just need to plot a point on the number line. When you try to plot a point in two-dimensional coordinate system, for example, if the question asks you to plot point 2, 3, basically you have to have this axis that consists of x-axis and y-axis. The 2, 3 basically will inform you about x coordinate and y coordinate respectively. I bet since we are familiar with two-dimensional coordinate system, by right, you know by heart on how to plot point 2, 3 on two-dimensional coordinate system. But the idea remains the same, such as the process will always take place at the origin. In this case, from the origin, you will move 2 units on x-axis positive and 3 units on y-axis positive. Then you will have this as point 2, 3. When you try to plot points in three-dimensional coordinate system, basically you have to sketch all the axes first, such as x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. This is the standard representation of axes in three-dimensional coordinate system. As you can see from here, the process will always remain the same. When the question asks you to plot point 1, 3, 4, 1 represent x coordinate. Y coordinate can be represented as value 3. Meanwhile, z coordinate is value 4. So in this case, from the origin, you will move 1 unit at x-axis positive, 3 unit at y-axis positive, and 4 unit at z-axis positive. There are several equations in two-dimensional coordinate system, such as linear equation and quadratic equation. If you look at the statement or the definition of a linear equation, it is defined as a statement that two algebraic expressions are equal, or basically, this linear equation will produce a straight line in two-dimensional coordinate system. There are several forms of linear equations. We will discuss about how to form linear equation by using gradient form. The gradient form is represented by the following equation: y is equal to mx plus c. In order to determine equation of a straight line in gradient form, you need to have information such as what is the gradient of the line and what is the y-intercept of the line. Imagine you have the information of a line that passing through 2 points. So from these 2 points, you have to label which one is the first point, which one is the second point. Right after that, you can use this formula to determine the difference of y and x coordinates respectively. By using the formula, you will be able to get the gradient of the straight line. Right after that, based on the illustration of a straight line given to you, you should know what is your y-intercept. Y-intercept will cross the y-axis, and normally the x-coordinate will become 0. Other than using gradient form to form linear equation, you can use point slope form or intercept form to construct equation of a straight line. In this case, for point slope form, you should be able to determine what is the gradient of the straight line, and right after that, you have to find what is the point that lies on the line in order for you to use the formula, which is y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. The intercept form is quite straightforward. As you can see from this illustration, the illustration must provide to you the information of x-intercept and y-intercept in order for you to use this formula. As you can see from here, x-intercept is represented by point A0, meanwhile, point B represents y-intercept, which is 0b. And then, by identifying the x-intercept and y-intercept of the graph or the straight line, you can simply substitute into the formula to form equation of a straight line. Now, let's talk about quadratic equation. The standard form of quadratic equation is given by ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, where coefficient a cannot be 0. I bet each and every one of you by right will know that the graph that will be produced based on quadratic equation is often called as parabola. You can either have concave upward or inverted C-shaped parabola as shown on the screen. By referring to your knowledge in calculus subject before this, you might come across with different types of parabolas, and somehow different types of parabola normally can be related to roots of the quadratic equation. As you can see from here, there are several ways to determine roots of the equation or the quadratic equation. You can determine roots of quadratic equation by using factorization method, or completing the square method, or quadratic formula, and last but not least, graphical method. Roots of quadratic equation can be classified into three different classes, such as two distinct roots when this condition is met, such as b squared minus 4ac larger than 0, or two equal roots when this condition is met, such as b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0. Normally, this type of graph will produce two equal roots. Or you can simply conclude the quadratic equation will produce no roots by having this condition, such as b squared minus 4ac is less than 0. Now, let's take a look at this example, where the question asks you to determine the nature of the roots for the following quadratic equation, and right after that, you have to sketch the graph of the quadratic equation, which is a parabola. Alright, as you can see from here, by referring to the general or standard form of quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, then you can determine the a, b, and c coefficients. In this case, a is equal to 4, b is equal to negative 12, and c is equal to 9. And then you have to substitute into the formula to determine its characteristic. In this case, b squared minus 4ac is equal to b is equal to negative 12. Therefore, negative 12 squared minus 4 times with 4 times with 9. So you will get 0. By referring to the explanation earlier, when b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0, you can reach a conclusion that the quadratic equation will produce no roots. And right after that, you have to remember the question also asks you to sketch the graph of quadratic equation. So in this case, there are several steps you need to follow. The first one, since a is equal to 4, which obviously larger than 0, so you will have open upwards, smile-shaped graph. And then in step number 2, you have to determine the y-intercept, because you have to somehow agree whether the parabola will lies either in first, second, third, or fourth, or it can appear in either two quadrants. The y-intercept can be determined by assuming x is equal to 0. By assuming x is equal to 0, y is equal to 4 times 0 minus 12 times 0 plus 9 is equal to 9. Therefore, the equation y is equal to 4x minus 12x plus 9, the y-intercept is equal to 9. Therefore, the y-intercept can be written in point form such as 0, 9. Right after you manage to determine the y-intercept, try to look at the x-intercept. In this case, x-intercept can be obtained by assuming y is equal to 0. In this case, since we have reached a conclusion based on our calculation earlier, such that you will get two equal root. In this case, by using calculator, then you will get that x is equal to 3 over 2. Therefore, the x-intercept is x equal to 3 over 2. And it can be right or put into point form, which will give you 3 over 2, 0. And then step number 3, you have to find the vertex. Since we have agreed that it will produce a smile shape, so we have to determine the vertex. The vertex can be determined by using this formula. Alright, so in this case, by using this formula, the vertex is 3 over 2, 0. And then step number 4, you have to find another point so that it will help you to confirm your calculation or the correct parabola based on the quadratic equation given in the question. Then you will get this parabola which confirm what you have shown earlier. I think the question is quite straightforward, so I really hope you will be able to do a lot of exercises just to get yourself familiar with linear equation and quadratic equation in two-dimensional coordinate system. Until then, see you again and bye.